Hi guys, welcome to a brand new video. Today in this video, we're gonna travel around the world to complete our list of the top 5 richest countries and poorest ones in the world. Before going further, I must say that due to the limitation, we just basically focus on general information and numbers to decide this ranking. Many of the world's richest countries are also among the smallest, which might surprise some. Although, in the context of widening income gaps between the wealthy and the rest, what do we mean when we say a nation is rich? Because GDP estimates the total amount of all goods and services generated in a region, dividing GDP by the number of full-time residents is a more accurate way of calculating how wealthy or poor one country's population is in comparison to another. We're gonna use current international dollars as the general measurement for GDP, and the details in this report are valid as of May 13, 2021. To begin with, starting with the top 5 richest countries sounds good, right? So, let's count down from the 5th position. It's Switzerland. This country has current international dollars at 72,873. Switzerland has contributed to the world numerous inventions such as white chocolate, computer mouse, the immersion blender, Velcro, and LSD. However, today, this 8.6 million strong country owes much of its prosperity to financial and insurance firms, as well as tourism and exports of pharmaceuticals, gems and precious metals, precision instruments, and machineries, from watches to medical apparatuses and computers. Is it so surprising that Switzerland has the world's largest concentration of millionaires? According to the most recent figures, there are 9,428 of them, billionaires included, per 100,000 inhabitants, accounting for 11.8% of the total adult population. Then, come to the 4th one, we have Qatar with current international dollars at 93,508. It's not about last year's oversupply and demand situation, which was exacerbated by COVID-19. Oil prices have been falling steadily and quite dramatically since the mid-2010s. A Qatari citizen's per capita GDP was over $143,222 in 2014, but it was kind of $97,846 a year later, and it is now much smaller. Although the country's oil, gas, and petrochemical resources are massive, and its population is limited, just 2.8 million, this wonder of ultramodern architecture, luxurious shopping centers, and fine cuisine has topped the list of the world's wealthiest nations for the past 2 decades. Now, the 3rd one. Ireland with the current international dollars at $94,391. While the rest of Europe was troubled with uncertainty, like Brexit, trade disputes with the United States, refugee and migration crises, the Irish economy continued to grow. In 2019, while the Eurozone grew by just 1.2%, the Irish economy grew by over 5.9%, solidifying its position as the continent's fastest-growing region. All of that shifted in 2020, as economic growth more than halved from previous peaks, though it is predicted to pick up this year. Ireland, with a population of fewer than 5 million people, was one of the worst affected countries with the 2008 financial crisis. The island nation restored fiscal health, increased job rates, and saw its per capita GDP nearly doubling in a brief period of time after implementing politically difficult reforms such as sharp cuts to public sector pay and reforming its banking industry. Here we have the runner-up, Singapore. The SID GDP rate is at 97,056. The wealthiest individual in Singapore is restaurateur Zhang Yang, who is worth an estimated $23 billion. Goh Cheng Liang, 93, the founder of one of the world's biggest paint manufacturers, is a near second with a fortune of $21.7 billion. Maybe we're wondering how Singapore becomes so prosperous. With almost no natural capital, Singapore built itself up from the ground up through hard work and smart policy in education and trading, becoming one of the world's most business-friendly cities. Singapore is now a flourishing trading, manufacturing, and financial center. Most importantly, 98% of the adult population is now literate. Okay, the moment we're looking for. Our champion of the richest nation belongs to Luxembourg. No surprise if its GDP is at $118,001. Luxembourg is known for its castles and stunning landscapes, as well as for its cultural festivities and gastronomic specialties. This country of about 625,000 people is located in the center of Europe, having a lot to offer both visitors and locals. Luxembourg invests a significant portion of its money in improving infrastructure, healthcare, and schooling for its people, who have by far the best quality of living in the Eurozone. The Grand Duchy's GDP will increase by 4% in 2021. Now, We go to the top 5 poorest countries to see how they're different. We also talk from the 5th position. It's Malawi with GPD at $996. Malawi, one of Africa's smallest countries, has made significant progress in recent years in terms of economic development and structural reforms to be benefited from substantial financial assistance from the IMF and the World Bank. Nonetheless, poverty remains high, and the country's economy, which is heavily reliant on rain-fed crops, is exposed to weather-related disasters. As a result, while urban living conditions are improving, food poverty in rural areas is at an all-time high. The next one at the 4th ranking goes to Central African Republic with GDP at $979. The Central African Republic, which is rich in gold, oil, uranium, and diamonds, is a prosperous country with a poor population. After claiming the status of the poorest country in the world for the better part of a decade, this nation of 4.75 million people is beginning to show signs of improvement. Despite many of the problems and accidents, development has picked up in recent years, supported by the forestry industry and a rebound in the agriculture and mining industries. The economy is also benefiting from the partial resumption of diamond sales. Despite this, the country has failed to recover sales and has only seen a portion of the income it once had, and nearly 70% of the population remains poor. And, now, Somalia is at the top 3. Its GDP is at $924. Somalis are growing desperate after 3 decades of domestic violence and war, repeated droughts and floods accompanied by food shortages and migration, a shortage of access to healthcare combined with the rapid proliferation of communicable diseases, and massive unemployment among young people. However, could have a brighter future, according to the World Bank. Rapid urbanization, increasing use of emerging technology, and investments in sectors such as energy, ports, education, and health will help economic development and job creation. A roadmap towards greater resilience and prosperity is being preceded by the government. Before naming the top 1, we have South Sudan as the runner-up with a GDP level of $791. South Sudan is the world's newest nation, established on July 9, 2011, 6 years after an agreement ending Africa's longest-running civil war. However, crime has continued to wreak havoc on this landlocked country of 11 million people. A new conflict was ignited in 2013 by complex politics. The region is made up of tens of territories and ethnic groups. As a result of the clashes, an estimated 400,000 deaths were caused, and about 4 million have been internally displaced or moved to neighboring countries. It's so sad to say, but the poorest country is Burundi. With just GDP at $759, this nation has been long affected by ethnic conflicts and civil war. Food poverty is a major problem, with nearly 90% of its 12 million inhabitants depending on subsistence agriculture, with the vast majority of them surviving on $1.25 a day or less, and food shortage is almost twice as high as the rate for sub-Saharan African countries. Besides that, access to water and sanitation is still limited, and only about 5% of the population has access to electricity. And that's all about top 5 richest and poorest countries in the world. What are your favorite parts, and what do you like in the next video? Let me know in the comments. If you like the video, make sure you're subscribed and ring that bell to be notified when we post so you can always be up to date.